Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back. I'm Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host of this episode of the Networking RX podcast. Thanks again for listening, subscribing, and referring others. In the last few weeks, we have done two other programs on 30-second commercials. Recently, we did one entitled Becoming More Effective with 30-Second Commercials, and then prior to that, a few weeks prior to that, we did one entitled A Primer on 30-Second Commercials. You get an opportunity. Go and listen to either one of those. Today I want to go over 7 tips that can help you refine your 30-second commercials. Before we get started, again, we are looking for franchisees to add to our system, a unique opportunity that someone can add on to what they're already doing, just like many of our franchisees already have. For a couple hours in the morning, a few days a week, you can work the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity. The rest of the time, you can operate your current business or profession. If you have some interest, contact me. There's an email in the show notes, or you can use one that's provided at the end of the podcast. Again, let's talk about 30-second commercials. They're certainly important, and there were 2 other episodes that kind of lead into this. The reality is that you're successful with what you do. You certainly are interested in getting referrals. These are probably very obvious assumptions. And so you want to have a productive experience from your networking endeavors. But what I see, and most people are out there, they're good people, they're good professionals, good at what they do, but I see them tripping themselves up with respect to their 30-second commercials. And for lack of a better term, we're calling them 30-second commercials. But I see people tripping themselves up in what they have to say and how they're describing themselves. And so I want to kind of help people work through those issues with 7 quick tips. The first harkens back to the last podcast episode, Becoming More Effective with 30-Second Commercials. And the first tip is preparation, preparation, preparation. You were probably awesome BSing your way through political science back in college. You're far more effective in educating others when you put some thought into what you have to say. You know, people, maybe your professor didn't care you were BSing and the fellow students didn't care, but when you're out talking with somebody, people know when you're kind of BSing, you're kind of rambling on, and they tend to tune you out. It tends to diminish your credibility in those moments. So take some time to prepare. Take some time, again, listen to those prior 2 episodes, put together a commercial, write out your commercials, review them, use them, get comfortable using them, refine them where you need to be refined, but just don't wing it. Preparation is the key. The second tip I will give you is that less is more. I get it. You do lots and lots, and you're probably great at all of it, but don't try and tell us all the things you do in one 30-second commercial. I understand it's tempting. You do so much and you may only have one opportunity. Chances are that's probably not true. You probably have multiple opportunities. But when you talk about lots and lots of different things, people tend to lose you early on. And so what you need to do is pick something and go with it. And you might miss an opportunity, but you'll surely miss opportunities if you try and talk about everything that you do. If you're in a setting where, if let's say you're a financial advisor, you're in a setting where there's probably lots of people who are geared towards retirement, then you want to pull out your 30-second commercial that's related to retirement. If you're in a setting where there's probably lots of people with kids and college planning is an issue, then you're going to want to talk about college planning. So you kind of need to know your setting, kind of need to know your audience, you kind of need to know who you're talking to, but don't feel like you need to, or don't talk about retirement, college planning, this, long-term care, and bring it all out there. And obviously that example is just for financial advisor. but it applies to all of us. Even when I was an attorney, there were a lot of things that I did as an attorney, and I didn't want to be talking about them all at the same time. So less is more. Focus on one thing. Ration what you have to say. That keeps you far more interesting for much longer. The third thing is the term anybody or everybody really equals nobody. When you tell us that anybody or everybody is a good client for you, our minds tend to think of no one. It doesn't really know how to sort out the information in its head. But when you share specific examples of clients, our minds are far more likely to think of somebody. The example that I've heard from time to time, one of our franchisees, Gina Winterstein, uses this. She says, if you tell me, hey, I'm looking for a used car, I'm not really going to think of anybody. But if you tell me I'm looking for a pink VW Bug, when I see that pink VW Bug, I'm going to think of you. If you just tell me you're looking for a used car, I'm going to drive by grocery stores and corner lots where there are used cars and never think of you. But if you're really specific, my mind will be able to hone in on that. So try and avoid the temptation to say, well, anybody's a good client or everybody's a good client. To a degree, that might be true. For a chiropractor, anybody with a back could be a good client, but it's not effective for us in thinking about you. But if you say, hey, I'm looking for somebody who's a weekend warrior or somebody who has been shoveling snow recently or been working in the garden, then when we're talking to somebody and they're like, yeah, I was playing soccer this week and I'm really kind of slow because of it, then we're thinking about, okay, this is a good opportunity for the chiropractor. So avoid anybody's and everybody's. The fourth thing is, remember, it's not what you do, but when you do it. Yeah, for the most part, most people already know what it is you do. When you say you're a realtor, we all kind of have an idea as to what it is you do. But in that instance, you're better served to tell us about when you do what you do. For example, as a realtor, to explain to people that you fly into action when someone's experiencing a growing household. For example, just had a baby. You're talking to somebody who's living in an apartment, just had a baby. That's a win. Or a splitting household. We just married off our last child, or our last child just graduated, took a job in another city. They're ripe for downsizing, or maybe celebrating and getting a much bigger house because they have money. But either way, those are wins, and you want to talk about wins. Financial planners talk to wins. Attorneys can talk to wins. We all have wins. These are when we do the things that we do. And so you want to try and have those things in your 30-second commercial. Work those sorts of things in. That'll help people sort things out in their minds. The fifth thing you want to put in your 30-second commercial is to quickly tell us a tale. When you share with us when you do what you do, don't rely on general concepts. Rather, talk about a story, something that you've recently done. When you talk to general concepts, it's not compelling, but if you create a visual imagery using stories or anecdotes or examples, we'll remember those much better. So again, quickly to recap before we continue on, preparation is key. Preparation, preparation, preparation. The second thing is less is more. The third thing, anybody or everybody equals nobody. So you want to be specific in what you're talking about. The fourth thing is talk about not what you do. As a realtor, I know what you do, but talk about when you do it. And then the fifth thing is work a quick tale in there, an anecdote, some sort of example, something that creates a visual image in my mind. The sixth thing you want to do is you want to avoid what I call techno whiz-bang language. I get it. We're all really, really smart at what we do. Great. Save the technical speak for the office and explain things to us as if we were fifth graders. People won't be offended. We'll probably remember much better. We'll be more empowered to try and get you referrals. But we all kind of fall into using this techno whiz-bang language because it makes us look smart, or that's just the only way we know how to talk. We all speak English. Most people listening to this speak English. Well, everybody listening to this speaks English. You're not understanding. But we speak English, but when we go back to our offices, we talk a dialect. If you're a mortgage lender, you're talking a mortgage lender dialect. You're talking about forms, You're talking about loan options, VA, FHA, 203B. I don't know if I got any of those right because I've never been a mortgage lender, but there's a dialect, there's a lingo there. Leave that at the office. You and your office mates can talk that all day long, but when you're out in a setting and you're talking with somebody, don't talk the lingo. And we all are guilty of it from time to time. You need to try and dumb it down. And then the seventh tip is take your time. If you prepare and you incorporate some of these other things I've talked about, less is more, so on and so forth, 30 seconds is really a long time. So speak calmly and enunciate. What you need to know is that if you do that, you're more likely to be understood by people. You're more likely to have credibility. You're more likely to seem confident, in which case you're going to be more effective delivering your 30-second commercial.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connections. All rights reserved.